40 years of DTM. It's the fourth race weekend of the DTM season 2024. We're psyched here to be at the Norisring. The sun is shining, we've got blue skies. It's the only city circuit in the calendar. So we've got summer in the city, and the man who wants to win here definitely is Marco Wittmann. He's actually racing his home race here, and he won at Zandvoort last race weekend, and of course he wants to repeat this victory because he has not won here at his home race since 2018. So surely he's going to push his green machine all the way to the limit. Let's see how he's going to do and everyone else. So now let's get qualifying here, you commentators. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Verena. Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Norisring, this street circuit, which is 2,162 meters in length. The scene of many battles, none more so than Michael Schumacher versus Alfred Hager in '91.
I overtake Alfred Hager, and I was in front of him in the Brems area.
It's the second time now that Schumacher makes some big mistakes during the first start.
I feel somebody pushed me in the back. My car is a little bit sliding.
It was another Formula One racer who went on to take the win, the legendary Hans Stuck, the 1990 DTM champion, entertaining the crowds around the streets of the Norisring, taking the victory in the race.
The brakes are finished, the gearbox is finished, everything to the end, but right in time, you know.
This is the scene of many, many classic battles. Welcome along, everybody, to the streets of Nuremberg. We are getting ready for qualifying for race 7 of the season. Races 7 and 8 this weekend of the 2024 DTM. And you can see the qualifying split into 2 parts for this weekend. Something a little bit different. We had free practice 1 and free practice 2 yesterday, and it's Mauro Engel who was the quickest of all across both of those free practice sessions. It means that positions number 1, 3, 5, 7 and so on through the pack move into Group A. Group B is made up of positions 2, 4, 6 and 8. It will be Group A that go first, and then Group B will go second. So we'll have 2 20-minute qualifying sessions. Group A going out first with Mauro Engel with that quickest time determining that. The quickest driver from both of those groups will be on pole position. So whichever of those drivers is quickest will be on pole position, and the remainder of their group will line up behind. Tomorrow, Group B will go first, so that should make it even across the weekend. There is an update on the points championship. It's Kelvin van der Linde who leads Mirko Bortolotti by 8 points yesterday. Kelvin van der Linde, who was going sideways around the track with the the Red Bull drifting brothers, putting out lots of smoke. He was a passenger in the car there, celebrating the fact he's at the top of the championship, but it is incredibly close as we approach the halfway point of the season. Ricardo Feller just 16 points adrift as well. So many drivers very much in contention for the championship. There is the 2022 champion, Sheldon van der Linde. Currently in 8th place in the standings, but he's only 23 points adrift. It really is all to play for. And of course, in qualifying, there are points to be scored, 3, 2 and 1. So pole position will get 3 points, second will get 2 points, and third will get 1 point. And then in the race, 25 points for each race as well. So 56 points available across the weekend. Defending champion Thomas Preining, he's 19 points adrift of Kelvin van der Linde, 4th in the point standings at the moment. He's aiming to continue his run of 22 consecutive points finishes. The driver who was quickest yesterday, Mauro Engel, he had a 49.060. Expecting to see times in the 48s during this session here today. Mauro Engel, who will be starting his 100th DTM race tomorrow. Let's head back down to Verena with more from the pit lane.
And I'm here with Ben Durr, who'll be qualifying in the second session. But just a question, it's taking quite a while. What would you say, what is the strategy? Why is everybody still kind of taking their time?
Yeah, for sure the track is fastest in the last minute, so everybody's waiting to have the peak of the tire on the last laps to get with the perfect track condition and the perfect tire condition, the lap in the ground. So yeah, that's the plan for everybody.
All right, thank you so much, Ben. Back to you.
Yes, so Ben Durr did not have a good day yesterday. He's the only driver in the field who has never raced around the streets of the Norisring before. And in FP2, he didn't take to the track. There were mechanical issues with the Durr Motorsport McLaren. I spoke to the team yesterday. They were being a little bit cagey, didn't really want to say what the problem was, but we saw Ben out on track this morning doing just a couple of installation laps, checking everything was working. But it is a steep learning curve for Ben Durr. Right, the clock is ticking. It's 20 minutes of qualifying for Group A. Then we will have a short break, and it will then be qualifying Group B. My name's Brian Oliver. I am trackside here at the Norisring. Chris Hartley, your regular commentator, he's on Formula One duties this weekend, so I'm very, very pleased to welcome alongside me for this weekend only, Mr. Adam Wello. Hello, Adam.
Good morning, Brian. Great to be back here once again at the Norisring. Got my first taste of it yesterday. You've got some experience around here. You've been here previously. It's such a one-of-one event, isn't it? It's nothing quite like anything else we see on the DTM calendar, scarcely like anything we see in the global motorsport calendar. I described the circuit yesterday as two 180-degree corners and two 90-degree corners, but that very much dilutes the challenge.
Yes, it is quite a challenge, and I think I said yesterday it's the closest thing to an oval you're ever going to get for DTM. It is effectively two hairpins joined by two straights, but one of the straights has a bit of a chicane thrown in the middle. It's a lot more complex than that. Look at the people pouring in at the moment. We're expecting well over 100,000 spectators on site this weekend, sitting on the concrete tribune here, looking down at the streets of Nuremberg. It is a tricky, tricky circuit, not like anything else these drivers race on during the year. It is the only street circuit for cars in Germany. Of course, the drivers can't prepare for this by doing any kind of testing because the circuit is built for this occasion. They started building it a couple of weeks ago. A massive group of people from the Motorsport Club Nuremberg did a phenomenal job. About 600 volunteers. We put in around 10,000 hours over the last couple of weeks, and we'll spend the next week taking it all down again. But they did a phenomenal job putting this together. It is quite a challenge. The barriers are incredibly close. There's a bit of runoff into turn 1 and a bit into turn 4, but apart from that, you get it wrong, you're going in the wall. And as we saw yesterday as we walked around the circuit, it is a very different kind of surface as you go around. You've got the tarmac, some of it's bumpy, some of it's got cracks in it. It is a public road, there are white lines painted on it, but especially out of the Scholar S chicane, out of turn 3, you've got that concrete pavement with a bit of a step up onto it, and the drivers go right up onto that pavement, don't they? So it is quite a unique challenge for these drivers.
Yes, lots of surface changes, lots of unique intricacies. Some of the curbs, especially at turn 1, if you're riding the curb at turn 1, that means you've also had to go over cobblestones to get there, which is something you don't see at most circuits. There are certainly plentiful opportunities to break traction. Also, just the outside of a couple of the apexes of these corners, you do see manhole covers as well. Obviously, that won't be too much of an issue in the dry, but in the wet, that could again be a point where you just lose the rear on the manhole cover as the grip changes underneath you, if we get that wet weather.
Yes, and on that subject, the skies are blue. I can't see any clouds. I'm looking at the weather forecast. We had a lot of rain here on Thursday. We are due for some rain later on today. I think it will be after the DTM race has finished. So possibly no issues for wet weather. Well, fingers crossed for that, as we see the Durr Motorsport McLaren of Clemens Schmid just being pushed back into the garage. You briefly saw the number 63 Lamborghini, the GRT Grasser, Team TGI by GRT Grasser, to give its correct title, Lamborghini, which is normally being driven by Christian Engelhardt. Christian Engelhardt's had a knee operation this week. He picked up an injury over the winter and has had an operation, getting it done and dusted. So he hopes to return at the Nürburgring, but the super sub, Frank Pereira, is in the seat. Made a very good showing for himself yesterday in free practice at the wheel of car number 63 for this weekend only. You also saw there briefly on your screen the SSR Performance Lamborghini Huracan being driven by Nicky Tim, and we say congratulations to him on his win at the Spa 24-hour race last weekend. It's clearly given him a bit of a shot in the arm, because yesterday he was towards the top of the timesheets in both of the sessions. You can see Maro Engel, who did circulate many times, did more laps than any other driver in both of the sessions yesterday. He's out on track at the moment. He's clearly decided that going out and putting the laps in, getting the tyres up to temperature and just staying out there is the way to go. In qualifying in DTM, we do tend to see in the 20-minute session a lot of quiet, and then it all kicking off in the last 5 minutes. Here's Arjun Maini on the team radio.
I will keep you updated about the pace, sectors and overall, and if you want me to shut up, just let me know.
Copy. Yeah, I will let you know very nicely. Don't worry.
So very much exploratory laps for these drivers at the moment. Yes, in qualifying, we normally see the qualifiers coming out more and more as the session goes on. It's normally very quiet at the start, but on this circuit, which is used by cars for the rest of the year round, by road cars, the later you leave it in the session, obviously, the more rubber that's going to go down. Potentially, the faster the circuit is going to get. We would expect our pole position time to come from Group B today, because the surface is likely to get quicker and quicker. And if you go, well, that's not fair on the drivers in Group A, they get to go second tomorrow. So it should all shake out in the wash. But at the moment, Maro Engel just weaving to get heat into the tyres. Of course, tyre warmers are not allowed in DTM. So we've got this moment of kind of 13 minutes remaining in this qualifying. Everybody just, it's a bit of a white knuckle ride really, because when you leave it to the end, if there is a red flag or some kind of issue, you may well not get an opportunity to put a lap in.
That's the thing, isn't it? We've had that previously with this qualifying format. They'll wait 14 minutes, somebody will throw it in the gravel, and oh dear, suddenly everyone's got to sprint out there after a extended red flag period. They're going to hope that everybody plays ball and is on the same page on that front. I've always thought it's just better to get out there and do a banker lap myself, but obviously I'm not a paid race engineer for many reasons.
I don't know what those reasons are. So we're approaching the halfway point of this session. The 10 drivers that are in this session, just for reference, are Maro Engel, who was quickest across all of the free practice sessions yesterday, or both of them. Nicky Tim, who was third fastest. Sheldon van der Linde, who was fifth fastest. Arjun Maini, Marco Wittmann, Thierry Vermeulen, Franck Pereira, Maximilian Powell, Ricardo Feller, and Clemens Schmid. So those are the 10 drivers who will be out on track. We're expecting, hoping to see a lap somewhere in the high 48s. We didn't make the 48 seconds. It's going to take me the whole weekend to get used to saying a lap time without one at the beginning. But yes, it is in just seconds. The low 49s, very low 49s yesterday for Maro Engel, but with the temperature rising, the track temperature is rising, more and more rubber going down, kind of expecting to see a fastest time in the 48s within the next 10 minutes or so. They're going to prove me wrong, aren't they?
I don't know about that. All 4 qualifying sessions here 12 months ago did go sub 49, fastest qualifying of 2023, or fastest qualifying lap of 2023, a 48.662 from René Rast. So the data suggests that your anticipation is going to be both warranted and indeed that they will pay you back on it. So that should be okay.
Thank you for your reassurance. We saw Marco Wittmann there. We heard from him earlier, and the green BMW. He is the local hero from Fürth, which is just up the road. And what a race he won last time out at Zandvoort. It was race 2. He got together with Mirko Bortolotti during the race. We saw the car kind of falling apart slightly. There was smoke pouring from it. He said there was so much smoke in the cockpit he could hardly see anything. Then the back corner fell off. We'll tell you more in a minute. Let's hear from Maro Engel first.
All cars on track now. All cars on track. Gap looks okay for the moment.
Okay, so 10 cars out on track. So yes, Marco Wittmann at Zandvoort, eventually the rear quarter of the car parted company, having been rubbing on it for much of the race, and he still went on and won. It was spectacular. As a result of that, it means he will be carrying a success ballast of 20 kilos for this race later on today. He doesn't carry it in qualifying, but he will have it for the race. Mirko Bortolotti came home in second. He will have 10 kilos during the race this afternoon. And Kelvin van der Linde, our championship leader, will be carrying 5 kilos on account of coming in third place. Kelvin, who has been looking very racy, he will be in Group B in this qualifying session. On this circuit, which is 2.162 kilometers around, it's about 1.3 miles with 5 turns. And there are 4 to the left and 1 to the right, running in an anti-clockwise direction. But even in a circuit as small as this, finding the space to put in that lap, even with just 10 cars on the track, still takes a bit of effort, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. The last thing you want to do is find someone on a cool-down lap just within your eye line, or indeed within your racing line. But we haven't seen too much of that this weekend. In fact, I thought they all did quite a good job of avoiding each other in FP1 and FP2 when they had all 20 cars on the circuit. We are starting to see those times chip away. We haven't got into the 40s yet. The fastest lap is still Maro Engel at the top of 50.957, but we're expecting a good 2 seconds to be lopped off that. Of course, Maro Engel, the only driver out there with a red number board on his car, the only driver out there with 3 digits, the 130, celebrating 130 years of Mercedes in motor racing. And this is really one of their most successful hunting grounds at Mercedes. Undefeated here from 2003 until 2015. It wasn't until 2016 that someone finally beat them and wasn't then subsequently disqualified. Sorry, Matthias Ekstrom, that's the second time I've mentioned 2013's race this weekend. But it's a very prominent part of Mercedes DTM history, and so Engel in that livery with that number would love to try and get a win on the board this weekend.
Yes, of course, that livery, which is celebrating 130 years of Mercedes racing in motorsport. That wonderful livery looks great, and he is certainly showing well here. But as is Arjun Maini, who now jumps to the top. Now the times are starting to come down. Thierry Mullen immediately eclipses him, a 49.778, and Arjun Maini a 49.798. Arjun Maini, who finished on the podium last time out in Zandvoort, but the time's now starting to come down a little bit. The circuit is split into 3 sectors. Sector 1 is from the start line on the pit straight around to the exit of turn 1. Sector 2 is kind of halfway towards turn 2 and towards turn 4, and then on the entrance to turn 4 round to the start-finish line is sector 3. Each sector is around 15 to 18 seconds at full tilt. The drivers, you can see from your graphic, the colours representing green, meaning that it is a personal best for the drivers, grey meaning it isn't, and purple meaning they are the quickest of anybody. So you can see drivers putting in personal bests at the moment, but with many of them now just starting to turn the wick up, we expect to see lots of greens and maybe some purples. It's Nicky Tim who's the quickest of anybody in Sector 1, an 18.331. A personal best in Sector 2, 15.208. So as we look at the car with the orange wing mirrors coming out of turn 5 across the line, is this going to be a fastest time? Yes, it is. 49.366. So we're still a little bit off the quickest time, about 0.3 off the quickest time from yesterday, but it's now starting to tumble.
Yes, it's going to free fall from here. We'll be verging on those 48 within the next minute or two. Everybody just now starting to really turn the wick up. Here comes Marco Wittmann, and then, of course, Sheldon van der Linde, the 2 BMWs from Schubert coming across the line. I should say 2 of the 3, of course. Sheldon van der Linde goes top of 49.235. We're getting closer and closer still.
So 5.5 minutes remaining. This session really ticks away quickly. And it is Sheldon van der Linde at the top, the 49.235. But Franck Pereira, who looked so rapid yesterday, he subbed here a couple of years ago for Rolf Nijken, who was ill. Then last year he was here doing a full season. He's back in the seat subbing for Christian Engelhardt this weekend, and he crosses the line to go into P3. So it was the middle sector that was quickest, but not in sectors 1 and 2. It's still that car there, the BMW. And the BMWs have been looking very quick here in both the free practice sessions. We had 3 in the top 4 yesterday, and Sheldon van der Linde at the top, 49.235, so he doesn't improve on that at the moment, but still plenty of time to go in this session.
I love these front-facing cameras, or I should say rear-facing cameras, facing the driver's face anyway, and you could just see there going into turn 1 the sheer focus on Ricardo Feller's eyes, locked and loaded on that apex. He was going to point that car nowhere else but the exact racing line into turn 1. You really can see the steely, unblinking determination of a racing driver trying to set a fastest lap. Van der Linde still with the benchmark, but here comes Marco Wittmann. He's got 2 personal best sectors. He's got 3 personal best sectors. That's his personal best lap, 49.282. Remains third for now. He'll be getting wheeled on by many people, donned in the green of his primary sponsor, Schaeffler, who are also based here in Nuremberg, just like himself.
Yes, Marco Wittmann always brings in a big crowd, especially here at the Norisring, his local track. He got to sleep in his own bed last night because he lives just up the road. Franck Pereira, quickest of anybody once again in Sector 2. It was a personal best in Sector 1, so now Franck Pereira crosses the line. It is still P4 for Franck Pereira, 49.349. On board with Marco Wittmann now. This is going to be interesting. Personal best in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2. He crosses the line up to P3. That'll go down well on the terraces. To remind you, this is not for P3 overall. It will be for a position on the 3rd row of the grid. Whether it's on the inside or the outside will depend on who is quickest at a Group A and Group B.
I'm very interested, actually, that we haven't got into that 48-second bracket just yet. I really thought we'd be there by now, but let's see if there are any last-moment surprises. Pereira is on a quick lap. One of the SSR Lamborghinis crossing the line, but not improving. Here comes Franck Pereira in the golden GRT, the TGI by GRT Lamborghini. He goes top of 49.147, but that's only 0.04 of a second. Fine margins around this circuit.
Yes, every thousandth counts on a circuit as small as this. You could just see still pushing on around, getting the heat into the tyres and getting the tyres into the window. Not the work of a moment in DTM. The BMWs and the Porsches have been looking especially strong around here, and that is backed up by Sheldon van der Linde with the 49.129 at the top. Franck Pereira in second, a 49.147, so about just nearly 0.02 of a second slower. Then it's the local hero, Marco Wittmann. Nicky Tim, who appears to have been very much on the crest of a wave this week in P4 at the moment, 49.265. We're into the last couple of minutes of this first qualifying session for race 7 of the season in the DTM, and after tomorrow we will be at the halfway point of the season. Where has this year gone? But we have 2 races between now and the halfway point, and we are qualifying for it. 90 seconds left in the first qualifying Group A for race 7, and it is still Sheldon van der Linde. Still, well, we hyped up it was going to be into the 48s. He's getting closer. 49.061. Franck Pereira, purple again in Sector 2, coming out of the final corner, or going into the final corner, now out of the final corner, taken absolutely flat out. Franck Pereira crossing the line. What's it going to be? It's a 49.12, so not eclipsing Sheldon van der Linde yet. Mara Engel briefly was up into P3, but he's been eclipsed by Arjun Maini. You've seen that shot there on board with Arjun Maini. You can see how close they get to the wall. We called it the Wall of Champions. We also called it the Wall of Wing Mirrors yesterday because they get out as close as they can. Mauro Engel once again in car 130, the great Mercedes livery in celebration this year out on circuit. Personal best in Sector 1. His Sector 2 was not too shabby, a 16.46 in Sector 2, but not enough, and he remains in that P4. 20 seconds remaining on the clock. Franck Pereira, he's not given up on getting that #1 position, has he? So we keep saying Sheldon van der Linde in pole. It would be the front row if he finished in first place. Arjun Maini continuing to push on.
Yes, front row depends whether or not the second session is quicker than him, effectively, what Group B gets up to after this. Checkered flag is out on the session. Last chance saloon then for anybody to make improvements. Look at that, less than 200ths off pole is Mauro Engel, or 200ths off the top of this session at least. Let's see if he's aced that final sector.
He's done personal best in Sector 1 and 2. No purples, but it's consistency across the lap. It moves him into P3, but that's as far as he's going to go. So it would be a, at best, third row start. Thierry Vermeulen still out on track, as is Arjun Maini, who we ride on board with, out across the start-finish line. Once again, Arjun Maini is into fourth place, so that's the fourth row of the grid. The rest of the cars peeling off. Sheldon van der Linde is in the pits, as is Franck Pereira, so it will be a front row start for Sheldon van der Linde. Franck Pereira will start on the second row, Mauro Engel on the third, then Arjun Maini, Marco Wittmann, Ricardo Fellow, Nicky Tim, Thierry Vermeulen, Max Powell on the 9th row, and Clemens Schmid on the 10th. The McLaren, they've been working really hard to get some pace into that. It's a whole new experience for Durr Motorsport. Great to have McLaren in the DTM this year, but even they are kind of acknowledging that it's a steep learning curve for them. There is Sheldon van der Linde. To remind you, he won a race here last year at the Norisring. He said that if he wins again this year, he's going to jump into the Dutzendijk Lake. I'd say rather him than me, although it's a lovely day for a swim. But a front row start is certainly what it's going to be for the Schubert Motorsport BMW of Sheldon van der Linde.
Big question on everyone's lips now, to slightly paraphrase Eiffel 65, inside or outside?
Beautifully done. Sheldon van der Linde, 49.061. Still, we haven't had a 48. Then Franck Pereira, Mauro Engel, Arjun Maini, Marco Wittmann, the local hero, on the 5th row ahead of Ricardo Fella, Nicky Tim, Thierry Vermeulen on the 8th row ahead of Max Powell on the 9th row, and it'll be Clemens Schmid who starts from row 10. So that was the qualifying Group A. We then get to do it all again. Yes, it's double bonus qualifying here on this Saturday and Sunday at the Norisring, as we look at how close to the wall Nicky Tim got. There goes the, what did we say about the wing mirror? And there it goes flying. Our camera beautifully positioned. And yeah, they're going to need a new mirror in that Lamborghini. There is René Rast. His expression says it all. He is looking on because it's going to be his go in a minute. Look how close to the wall. That's another one. That's Max Paul. Well, the mirror did actually stay attached. So I think there might be a little bit of paintwork that'll need touching up. We almost lost the camera there as well.
I'm going to say it's no longer close to the wall if you actually hit it. Also, I do notice that that camera is mounted just above the height of a rear wing end plate of a GT3 car, which is quite clever from the powers that be in production.
Yeah, they're not stupid here, are they? There's Thomas Voss from the ADAC, the man who heads up this operation, does a wonderful job organising his team for the DTM. Right, Group B, are you ready on standby? You can see there, René Rast was second quickest across the both free practice sessions yesterday. Mirko Bortolotti, Lucas Auer, Lucas Stoltz, Kelvin van Linde, championship leader, Jack Aitken, Thomas Preining, defending champion, Luca Engster, Ian Chen-Gun, and Ben Durr, who has got a steep hill to climb today as he missed out on FP2 yesterday. But the good bit is, it's not raining. What a lovely view we have here. It's so good to come to Nuremberg, the streets of Nuremberg, for this session every year. We've been here many, many times, and the ADAC Norisring Speed Weekend is in fact the 81st time that has taken place. Of course, DTM wasn't there 81 years ago. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary of DTM here at the Norisring this weekend. Happy birthday, DTM. And it is quite a celebration. Right, let's head down to Marina. It looks like she's with Sheldon down in the pits.
Yep, here I am with Sheldon van der Linde, who's fastest in the first session, so that feels good.
Yeah, it really feels good, honestly. It's been a difficult season for me so far, or would I say Zandvoort has been difficult for me. So I'm very happy to just be on the front row at least. It's always a bit different here in Norisring because you're on pole, but you still need to wait for the second group to go. So it's a bit different. But yeah, either way, I'm on the front row, which is super important here at Norisring. You can't overtake. And I knew it would be very important to turn my season around. Not turn it around because we had a good year until Zandvoort, but there we kind of missed chances with the podium. So hopefully I can get my first podium this year.
And do you think it's going to be an advantage for the second session because maybe the track is faster, it gets hotter?
I think so, yes. I think the second session will naturally be quicker. It was the same last year, so I don't expect them to be slower. But like you said, either way on the front row, that's all I'm worried about today.
All right, well, best of luck for the race later on. Thank you so much. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Verena. Sheldon says you can't overtake at the Norisring. Well, nobody told Thomas Preining that last year. Of course, that audacious move when he muscled his way past Rene Rast. It's been a highly replayed clip, and be interesting to see how they get on in this session. Thomas Preining, as I've mentioned earlier, who's looking to continue his run of 22 consecutive points scores in DTM, the only driver to have done that. But starting from the front of the grid on this circuit will be a massive advantage. The circuit that is nicknamed the Franconian Monaco for very good reason, because overtaking is a challenge.
For sure, yes. You need to be fully committed to make a move. Interesting there to hear from Sheldon van der Linde what he was having to say. You have to remember, of course, he's the only driver to take top 10 spots in every single race of the season so far. But to his own point, missed out on podium opportunities thus far. If he can get himself one victory this weekend, it really changes the flavour, really, of his championship campaign. He goes from someone sat in the top 10 being consistent to someone who's a championship contender if he can just get to the top step of the podium.
And he certainly knows how to do that around here. He did it this time last year in race 1. It was Sheldon van der Linde who won race 1. Race 2 was won by Thomas Preining. The year before, the race winners were Felipe Fraga and one Mr. Thomas Preining. There is a bit of a link there, so I would suggest keep an eye on car number 91. He knows his way around here, Thomas Preining, the defending champion. He can see the points championship up ahead of him. We saw the points at the start of the show. He is 19 points back from Kelvin van der Linde, so very, very much in contention to defend his title. But it is incredibly competitive this year. The drivers cannot afford a DNF. The only driver who has won twice this season in DTM is Jack Aitken. And yet he is down in 7th place. He is also 23 points adrift of Kelvin van der Linde. And we were saying this yesterday, it is consistency. The drivers cannot afford DNFs. They need to be scoring points consistently across every race.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can't afford to be dropping too many opportunities in this season. Aitken will be very keen to, if not add a third win to that tally, at least get on the podium 1 or 2 times this weekend at the Norisring to really cement himself as a championship contender. Currently 7th in the championship points, but only 23 points off of the championship lead. It's very tight in the standings at this stage of the season. One victory or indeed one duff performance is going to gain or lose you 5 positions in the points easily.
It is so close, and it's great to see. It's what we love. You can see there the time to beat, 49.061. So 49.061, which is 1/1000th of a second slower than the quickest time yesterday. Let's have a listen to Thomas Preining on the team radio.
So just for info, we'll have around 3.5 to 4 minutes of standstill. Go into the tunnel, full focus.
So 49.061, that is what they need to beat if they want to be on the inside row of the grid for the race this afternoon. And as we've already suggested, the track is likely to get quicker and quicker, but it is exactly what we saw in Group A, and that is the cars going out, doing an installation lap, making sure everything's working, then back into the pits, and then the waiting game. It takes a bit of bravery as we look at Kelvin van der Linde, our championship leader. He sat there just waiting for that moment. Of course, tyres are limited in the DTM. You don't want to use your rubber up too early here. Although, having said that, this circuit is not hard wearing on the tyres, certainly not in the way that many of the other circuits we visit are. But you want to save the best to the absolute end. Of course, the drivers will go out, they will do an out lap, then you'll have build laps, and then when the tyres are exactly at the temperature they want them to be, it'll be time to pull the pin and try and set your best time of the session. Sheldon van der Linde looking on at his brother. He knows that he will have an open track in front of him for the race later on today. He just doesn't know whether his main contender will be on the left or on the right.
That's the big question. You want to be on the inside going into that first hairpin for sure. There goes the famous Manfilter Mamba colours. It's strange that most of the most famous liveries in German motorsport are green and yellow between Grello and the Mamba. I'm not sure what the common thread is there. There's the 14 car then. There's Jack Aitken. The Emil Frey Ferrari. I've had to train myself a little bit for that. I'm used to them being Lamborghinis. And then before that, Jaguars.
You're so old.
Yes, I know. There's Kelvin van der Linde's onboard view then. Of course, Abt Sportline, a team that have had successes here at the Norisring going back well over 20 years, even outside the DTM as well, when they were one of the main proponents of the Audi lineup in the Supertourenwagen series in the late 1990s. And Mirko Bortolotti, he would love to claim a win here at the Norisring. I think he's always struck me in the brief conversations I've had with him as someone who likes the statistics, likes those achievements, those little bit of history, and I think winning here at the Norisring would be something he'd covet.
Oh, he really would. He's a driver who's always there. He's finished in the points in every race so far this season. He's had a couple of second places. He's had a pole position, but he's yet to stand on the top step of the podium. You get the feeling it won't be too long before that happens.
No, I don't think so at all. Mirko, of course, yeah, second in the championship, he said, but only 8 points back. So the swing could happen very quickly if indeed he does get onto the top step, and especially if Kelvin van der Linde has anything like a suboptimal race at the same time. Bortolotti, who, of course, go back well over a decade. He was a Formula 2 champion back in the day, the previous iteration of Formula 2 as well. Made that switch over to tin tops, as so many drivers do when they reach junior single-seater cul-de-sac, and I think on reflection, one of the best moves he ever made.
Yes, and he's certainly shone since he's come into GT3 racing. Had problems yesterday in FP1, mechanical issues. He was towards the back of the timing sheets, towards the bottom of the timing sheets. They sorted it for FP2, and he ended up finishing in third place in his, no, make that fourth place in the combined FP1 and FP2. So clearly they got on top of that. His teammate Nicky Tim, there obviously data being shared across the garage as well. He has been dialed in the whole time as well. The Schubert Motorsport crew looking on, and there is Sheldon van der Linde. He's done his hard work for the time being. He can now watch and see what the opposition are doing. What a great shot that is, looking down into turn one, the Grundig turn here at the Norisring in the glorious sunshine as we get ready to qualify for the first two races this weekend in the 2024 DTM season. It is round 4, races 7 and 8. And then after this, we will be into the second half of the season. Right, as far as I can see, we've got 10 cars out on track. So all cars out on track. So now that moment where the cars have to build, or the drivers have to build the heat into the tyres and into the brakes. It is quite a science. They're not just trucking around hoping for the best. It's all about getting the tyres exactly in the window, getting the right bit of space out on the track, and then when they are ready, it'll be time to pull the trigger and go for that time.
Likely another 4 or 5 minutes before we start to see any truly representative times based on the patterns we've seen previously. Preining still building heat into the Porsche 992 GT3R. Of course, Thomas Preining and Porsche with a long-standing relationship. Back in 2018, he was the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany champion, and the very following year, he was racing a GTE Porsche in the World Endurance Championship. The ascendancy for Preining at the time when he won that championship in Carrera Cup Germany was 19 as well. He's a very young man still at just 25 years of age. And that brand loyalty, pairing yourself to a brand, is so critical in this game. Again, harking back to Mirko Bortolotti, he was in one of the driver lineups on the global debut of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, Monza 2015. And ever since then, you can scarcely find a race weekend featuring Lamborghini GT3 cars where Bortolotti isn't driving.
No, his name does seem to pop up wherever you go. He gets a lot of experience. Let's hear team radio now for Thomas Preining.
Okay, Tommy, we are starting our second build. There's a bit of a pile-up in front. All cars are out on track. All cars are out on track. Car to the front is Kelvin. Car to the front is Kelvin. And we got over 40 seconds margin. So we are good to drop a bit.
So, all about getting the tyres into the window, but finding that space out on track. A bit of a pile-up up in front. No, it doesn't mean there's been a crash. It just means that all the cars are pretty well running together. Well, I'm looking now, and they're starting to space out a little bit. Kelvin van der Linde just ahead of Thomas Preining. Ahead of him is Luca Engstler and Lucas Auer. But just finding that space, plenty of time at the moment, says he, with less than 9 minutes remaining. But it's going to be in a 2 or 3 minutes where I expect we're going to see the time starting to come down. Not really a representative time at the moment. Lucas Stoltz, a 50.315, so still well over a second, about 1.3 seconds slower than Group A, but that's all going to come tumbling down in a bit. There is Lucas Auer in the yellow Mamba, that legendary livery, the Mercedes, which is showing flashes of brilliance here this weekend. Lucas Auer been fairly under the radar so far in the free practice sessions, as indeed has been the case with Jack Aitken. Didn't do that many laps in the free practice sessions yesterday. He quite often likes to leave it until qualifying before he actually shows his hand in that Ferrari.
Auer with the first somewhat representative lap time then, a 49.693 to go top. There'll still be a few more tenths to take out of that at the bare minimum, but we are now seeing the taps get opened as we rapidly approach the final half dozen minutes of qualifying. Of course, we remind you the time to beat, as you can see on the top of your screen, a 49.061. That's what they need to beat to go onto pole position. Van der Linde at the moment with a claim to the front row. The question is whether he'll be first or second on the grid.
Right, so Lucas Stoltz, quickest of anybody in Sector 1, not so in Sectors 2 and 3, so he is in 5th place, but Lucas Auer, that person that they're aiming for. Luca Engstler popping up into P2 now, 49.711, so he's turning the heat up as well, but keep an eye on René Rast, the personal best in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2, he comes across the line, it takes him to the top. René Rast at 49.498, so we still reckon maybe up to about another half a second to come off that time, potentially. Jack Aitken, the next driver to really turn up the heat. Bortolotti crosses the line in P4, but here comes Jack Aitken up to second place, 49.627. So with less than 7 minutes remaining, the times are starting to come down, but still quite a lot more to come as we look down at the Grundig turn from up above. And now we ride on board with Thomas Preining in the Porsche. Personal bests in Sector 1 and Sector 2. He's in 8th place at the moment. Mirko Bortolotti, purple in Sector 1. Preining up to P4, 49.591. Bortolotti, it was a 18.6 seconds in Sector, 18.3 in Sector 1. That has been eclipsed by Lucas Stoltz, 18.328 in Sector 1. So we keep getting the purples coming up. Here comes Bortolotti across the line. It's going to be an improvement. Where will he be? P3 is the answer. So Mirko Bortolotti up into P3. Jack Aitken crossing the line, 6th at the moment, but still building the temperature.
Lucas Stoltz looking fast in the first sector at the very least. What does sector 1, 2 and 3 give him? Well, it's enough for the pole for now, or at least the fastest in the session for now, a 49.209. They're 1.5 tenths off of Van der Linde's benchmark from Group A. Of course, this will form either the left or right-hand side of the rolling start when we go racing later on. This will either be 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and so on the circuit right now, or 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and 10th, depending on how fast the fastest in this group goes.
Indeed, there's Jack Aitken again. So Lucas Stoltz at the top, 49.209. Rene Rast came close. Kelvin van der Linde briefly popped up into P5. That was eclipsed by Jack Aitken, who's now up into 5th place. So 5 minutes remaining. Are we going to see somebody into the 48? We predicted it would happen in the first session. It didn't happen. I'm not going to predict anything in this session because we know better than that. Lucas Auer up into 2nd place still, 49.205. Luca Engsler, good solid job by him, into P4. But at the moment, I'm not seeing any purples, and it's not just about purple sectors, it's about tying it all together. Having said that, Lucas Stoltz immediately puts in a purple. What do I know? So Lucas Stoltz, the fastest man, looking to improve on his 49.189. In the 2nd sector, he's recorded a slower time, but it's Mirko Bortolotti to the top, 49.163. So Mirko Bortolotti in the Lamborghini, currently in the #1 position in the timing.
Good time coming on from Kelvin van der Linde as well. Van der Linde will be coming towards the line now, as is Rene Rast in the 33 car. There is the Red Bull backed at Sportline machine. It goes 2nd of 49.183, exactly 200ths off of Mirko Bortolotti. I'm not sure Rene Rast is quite going to be up there. No, 5th for the time being.
So we're not seeing anybody getting that close to the fastest time in the first session yet, but we've still got 3 3/4 minutes remaining. Mirko Bortolotti crossing the line of 49.154. Remember, it's 49.061 that they're all aiming to beat if they want to be on the inside at the front. Jack Aitken recording purples in sector 2 once again, but not hooking it up in sectors 1 and 3. Thomas Pryning getting nice and close to the wall, giving the camera a bit of a shake, but the time is starting to tick away. Bortolotti, an 18.3 in sector 1. So he is the quickest of anybody in that sector, but in sector 2, he is a 10th or so slower than the quickest that has been set by Jack Aitken in the 2nd sector. He continues to push on in the SSR Performance Lamborghini out onto the pit straight. These laps really are so short. He crosses the line, 49.148, an absolutely identical time to Lucas Auer at the top of the timing screen. So both of them with a 49.148. It goes to Lucas Auer at the moment on account of the fact that he set it first. But identical times to the thousandth of a second between Lucas Auer and Mirko Bortolotti at the top.
It's not just the Wall of Champions that we share with Montreal then. We saw that a few weeks ago elsewhere. 49.007. That's faster than Van der Linde went in Group A. So, sorry, faster than Sheldon van der Linde went. So it's Van der Linde on Van der Linde, and Kelvin's impressed his brother, look.
Yes,
that is the fastest time we've seen.
There's a look from Sheldon that maybe replied many times. So Kelvin van der Linde at the moment, if things remain as they are, it will be an all Van der Linde front row, and Jack Aitken first into the 48, so 48.965. It was short-lived at the front. Now, can Kelvin van der Linde respond? Yes, he does. He's a purple in sector 2. Kelvin van der Linde looking to respond with 1 minute and 3/4. Great Britain's Jack Aitken, the quickest, currently on pole position for this race. We know that pole position is now going to come from Group B. Who is it going to be? At the moment, it's Jack Aitken, because Kelvin van der Linde does not improve.
Now the question here is there anyone outside of those two? Right now it feels like it's Kelvin versus Jack Aitken. But let's see as well, let's keep an eye on what's going on third downwards. Will we see any late improvements from the likes of the Mercedes drivers, Rene Rast in the BMW that was so strong in free practice? Those two mid-engine machines, though, the Ferrari and the Audi, they're supreme in that middle sector through that chicane at 2 and 3. They just seem to have that little step. That's the thing. These cars are balanced, but they all have their own characteristics and strengths.
We now know we are fighting for the inside row for race 1 of the weekend this afternoon, because Jack Aitken has gone quicker than anybody so far. A 48.965. It doesn't look as though anybody is challenging that at the moment. It would be Kelvin van der Linde who'd start on the inside second row. That would be in P3. And Lucas Auer who would start on the inside third row. But we've still got 30 seconds or so of this lap remaining. Once the clock strikes 0, any drivers that are already on a lap, that time will count. But the time is running out to beat Jack Aitken. That man there for Emil Frey Racing in car number 14. Looks like he's had the best that he's going to get out of this session, a 48.965. But Jack Aitken, car number 14, looking for his third pole position of the season. Mirko Bortolotti responds. Purple in sector 1, looking to improve on a 4th row start. So Mirko Bortolotti, what's he going to do in sector 2? Not anything spectacular in sector 2. It was a 15.1 sector 2. So whether he can do something out in sector 3, we're going to find out in just a few moments. Here comes Mirko Bortolotti to cross the line. Is he going to beat Jack Aitken? No, he is not. It's a 2nd row start for Mirko Bortolotti. It's Kelvin van der Linde down onto the 3rd row. Rene Rast on the 4th row. The checkered flag is out. Any drivers still on a lap? Only Lucas Stoltz, and there's nothing too spectacular coming from there. So it's going to be Jack Aitken who starts on pole position for the 3rd time this season in race 7 of the DTM 2024 season.
And of course, given this is the fastest group, that means Mirko Bortolotti will score an extra championship point for being 3rd on the grid. And who knows, at Hockenheim, he could be thankful for that.
He really could, because we saw it last year. Every single point counts. Jack Aitken is on team radio.
Okay. P1, check, P1. Nice one, P1. Okay. Cool the brakes, save fuel, and also overall pole. Thank you, mate.
Hey! How about that? Fucking hell. Good job, guys.
Jack.
Really good job. That was a really difficult lap. My God. Really well done, guys.
Well, that's the 2nd time Jack Aitken's going to the naughty step for obscenities. Apologies for the fruity language there. You'd think coming from Great Britain he'd know better, wouldn't you? But celebrations indeed in the Emil Frey Racing Garage. Jack Aitken, understandably overjoyed.
And championship points in qualifying really do matter, as minimal as they are versus the race scores. Aitken will go from 59 to 62 points. He will go from 7th in the standings to 5th in the standings, because we're so close together in the championship fight. Equally, Sheldon van der Linde with 2 championship points for qualifying 2nd. He will go from 8th in the standings to 7th in the standings, ahead of Maro Engel, who's the big loser. He'll have gone down from 6th to 8th in the standings because of Aitken and Sheldon van der Linde's qualifying performances.
Well, I should say that Maro Engel wasn't expecting that when he got out of bed this morning, having been the fastest of anybody yesterday, but it is out of this session. He hasn't scored the points. The points have gone to Jack Aitken, Sheldon van der Linde, and Mirko Bortolotti. But the big 3, and that's incredible how much movement there is in the points just for putting it on par. I said just for putting it on pole position. I won't be able to do it. But Jack Aitken, a sterling job. He waited to the end. We said early on that he was not showing his hand in free practice yesterday, just getting on with it, quietly confident, somewhere near the bottom of the timing sheets. And then when it mattered, only 2 drivers making it into the 48 seconds during this session. Jack Aitken with a 48.965, Mirko Bortolotti with a 48.989.
And I suspect that we'll get the live insights in a few moments, of course, from down there in the assembly area post-session. But there's the story for Group B, at least. Aitken top of the group. Bortolotti second in group, third overall.
Yes, solid drive once again from Mirko Bortolotti. Kelvin van der Linde in third for Abt Sportsline. Championship leader Rene Rast, Lucas Auer, Lucas Stoltz, Thomas Preining down in 7th place. So a lot of work for him to do later on today. Luca Engstler on the 8th row ahead of Ein Chang-gun and Ben Durr. Good job from him. Only 7.74 off the fastest time. When you consider he's had very, very little running, that is a sterling job. So there is your provisional starting order with the two groups combined. It's going to be Jack Aitken and Sheldon van der Linde on the front row. Mirko Bortolotti and Frank Pereira making it an all Lamborghini row 2. At a championship leader, Kelvin van der Linde and Maro Engel. And then Rene Rast and Arjun Maini on the next row ahead of Lucas Auer and Marco Wittmann. This is set fair for an epic race this afternoon. Lucas Stoltz, Ricardo Feller are on row 6 ahead of Thomas Preining and Nicky Tim. Disappointing from him after such a strong showing yesterday. Luca Engstlen, Thierry Vermeulen, Ein Chang-gun, Max Powell, and then Ben Durr and Clemens Schmid and all McLaren. Durr Motorsport back row, back down to Verena in the pits.
And I'm here with the man who's starting in pole position, and that's Jack Aitken. Just congratulations, Mirko Bortolotti. Congratulations, pole position. So it's perfect for the race later on.
Yeah, to be honest, we really didn't expect that. You know, last year we really struggled in this circuit. It was one of the weakest ones for us. And for sure we made some changes this year, but yeah, we were not expecting to fight for pole at all. So I managed just one lap really good, and it was enough. And I'm just amazed. So yeah, really happy with the team, the car. They did a great job.
All right, fantastic job. Thank you so much, Jack. Best of luck for the race, and now back to you.
So Jack Aitken in the best possible position to get his championship very much back on track as we look again at the wall of wing mirrors. There is a wing mirror. There is, well, I was going to say an ex-wing mirror. It actually held on remarkably well. There were others that didn't survive the journey. That was Mirko Bortolotti getting up close and personal with the concrete walls. Thomas Preining doing something similar, giving it a little bit of a kiss, more of a snog really. And the Porsche, they build them strong at Porsche, don't they?
I think that was on the verge of being less a kiss, more a headbutt, to be honest. But yes, Thomas Preining certainly testing the limits around this circuit, but that's what you need to do. You've likened this to oval racing. Much like an oval race, if you're not close to the wall, you're not going to find the time.
No, absolutely. Extracting everything out of it. Right back down to Verena in the pits.
Better than third row, right?
Better than third row. There we go. So Sheldon van der Linde happy with his P2. And what are you expecting for the race? I mean, obviously this racetrack is unforgiving, so how are you going to do the thing that you're going to win?
Yeah, I think I need to just get a good start. I think obviously Aitken's now on pole, so that Ferrari is quick off the line. We know it's strong this weekend, so I'm not expecting to pull past on the first lap. Maybe first corner, but it's always riskier on the outside. You obviously risk getting pushed into the wall. And it's not so easy from P2 to judge when the lights are going to go green normally because you can't jump start. So let's see. I just wonder if I can hold my position P2 and then kind of see where the race goes with a good strategy, a good pit stop, and then try and undercut or overcut. Should be good. Thanks, mate.
Right, well, best of luck. Let me just grab, Mirko. I'm sorry. Hello there. Well, congratulations. Starting in P3 today. So it's going to be a tough one, but what's your gut feeling?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy with this quali. It's, you know, the shortest track on the calendar with the least amount of corners, but I can tell you it's probably the most difficult for qualifying. It's so easy to lock up, it's so easy to make tiny mistakes, which cost you a lot, because the tiniest of margins, as we've seen. So it's really tricky to put it together, to find the limit and not overshoot the limit. So it's really, like, it's not fun, because it really needs to be, everything needs to work out perfectly. And you keep going faster with the laps. It's quite a special track on that. Looking at the race, back to your question, I think P3 is a great starting spot at the streets of Nuremberg. Let's see what it will hold for us this evening, this afternoon. We will give it all. Obviously, we've never won here. We finished second 2 years ago, So if we have a chance to try and go for it, we will go for it.
Maybe time for a victory. Thank you so much, Mirko. And Mirko said it's not fun here, but the spectators, us, we're definitely going to have fun. So we're looking forward to the race. I hope you are too. See you later on. Here are the highlights. Enjoy.